disgruntled receivers, so you got to get through that. They've tried to address some of the things with offensive tackles. They brought in a couple guys, so that potentially should be good. But there were a lot of problems defensively. They were one of the worst teams in yards per run, and one of the worst teams in yards per pass. So usually when that happens, that isn't combined with the fact that they were one of the worst teams in deep balls given up in passes, and one of the worst teams in plus 20-yard runs. So you don't usually have the combination of you're bad on the average and you're giving up these deep balls. They tried to address that with changes and overhaul in the secondary and some other things from a personnel perspective. But that defense was pretty good when they were good. And they could do a lot of, they were a little bit underrated as well.
So that's, if I can just show the numbers on that, because I totally agree with Coach. It's about if the defense gets back to where it had been. Because, and I know we're going to talk about Burrow and Mahomes later, and when they won those 3 straight games against the Chiefs, Burrow played well. But the bigger story to me of those Chiefs losses was Lou Anarumo and that defense really making Patrick second-guess himself, play the worst half of football of his life in that AFC title game, make some uncharacteristic mistakes. And the Bengals had been, under Lou Anarumo, kind of the opposite of the Bills' defense the last few years, which was the Bills would have these gaudy regular seasons, and then they would play a great quarterback in the postseason, and he would carve them up. And that's one of the reasons that they made Leslie Frazier step aside, and they made changes. The Bengals would have average regular seasons defensively and then really succeed against these great quarterbacks in the postseason. Last year, that defense fell off a cliff. So I do think people are sleeping on them a bit. I think that when Joe Burrow is healthy, they are a top 3 team in the AFC clearly. If they can just have an average defense. The question is, are they going to have an average defense?
And it's also a big question is when Joe Burrow's healthy.
Sure. Well,
he still played 10 games last year and was only 5-5. And then he said,
but it felt to me like, didn't it feel to you like he wasn't healthy that first month of the year?
He was out there. He couldn't throw the ball.
Now remember, his sack percentage is one of the, I think he's the 7th highest in terms of career sacks.
Yeah.
And all those sacks aren't the offensive line. He's got some responsibility for that as well. So part of him being healthy is his ability to get rid of the ball too and not try to be a superhero, because that hasn't really worked out very well for him.
Okay, he might struggle against Lamar. He does have success against Patrick Mahomes. Here he is on how playing Mahomes brings out the best in him. Take a listen.
I think you got to go out and not be scared to make mistakes. You got to go out and make plays, because you know he's going to go out and make plays, and that brings out the best in me. It's always an exciting challenge when we go against each other. It's an opportunity every time you go against him too, because you know all the eyes are going to be on it. It's always exciting.
Insightful. Here's their head-to-head numbers. 3 wins for Burrow, and he's
it's Coach's favorite graphic.
I really do enjoy it.
He has to bring it back.
I really use it for anything.
I had a sarcastic insightful about the first quote. The second quote I actually thought was insightful. The idea that Burrow likes the bright lights of playing Mahomes.
Well, it's
like,
different.
That's the whole Joe Cool attitude where other guys are like, oh my God.
Different than, I know people think I made too big of a deal of it, but when Lamar was asked before the AFC title game, how much do you like playing Mahomes? And he was like, I don't like it at all. He was like, it's not fun. And I think Burrow, so go ahead and ask the question.
No, the question is Burrow Mahomes' only rival?
He could have been. If Mahomes has a rival, it's Joe Burrow. The answer is he doesn't have a rival. But one of the most interesting moments in recent NFL history is that drive that Chris Jones sacked Joe Burrow on with a minute left in the AFC title game 2 years ago. Because if Joe finishes that drive off, everything about the NFL is so different. He would then be 4-0 against Patrick, 2-0 in the playoffs. Mahomes wouldn't have won that Super Bowl. I'm actually of the belief that if the Chiefs hadn't won the previous year, I don't know if they have the confidence to pull out of the spiral that was the end of last year. And everything's different. Quarterback rankings, everything's different. Unfortunately, he didn't come through there. Patrick then did. And now this is why there's no rivalry, despite how much Coach loves that graphic. Since Joe last beat Patrick, here's what's happened. Because it's been 610 days. Since then, Patrick has won 7 playoff games, a league MVP, 2 Super Bowls. And Joe's 1 playoff loss was to Patrick. And the next year, they didn't make the postseason. And despite the fact that Patrick's worst season happened since then, he still has better numbers across the board. So to put that in context, since Joe Burrow last beat Patrick, Mahomes has accomplished essentially Steve Young's career. 7 playoff wins to 8, with 2 Super Bowls to 1 in Patrick's favor, 2 MVPs to 1 in Steve Young's favor. So it's the further removed we get from that AFC title game that Joe Burrow won, the harder it is to say they're a true rivalry.
I agree that Mahomes has no rival in the league right now. His rival's Tom Brady. His rival is Tom Brady. That's the only one he's competing against. If Mahomes doesn't win another championship, then if you want to say Joe Montana's in there, he's a rival. But right now, there's no one in the league. But I do think, Nick, and obviously he's gotten the best of Lamar. But if the Ravens were to beat them in the playoffs this year and win the Super Bowl, then I do think people would start thinking, oh, Lamar's got 2 MVPs. It's a Lamar-Mahomes rivalry. Or if Burrow beats him again in the playoffs, it will be viewed as a rivalry, assuming Burrow can win the Super Bowl. If Stroud, I think these are the 3 players. Stroud could make it a rivalry this season too. So I think those 3 players. Allen's lost too much. Like he's got to win more than just one in the playoffs this year to be Mahomes' rival. But I think those 3 have a chance right now in the AFC.
Yeah, to me that's what's disappointing about this time that we're in is there isn't Brady Manning, Brady Roethlisberger, Brady Breeze, Brady Aaron Rodgers. There's so many quarterbacks that were successful, had 1 quarterback or 1 Super Bowls, and you could make the argument that each year they had the potential to. But in this group, it's Patrick Mahomes and everybody else, and hopefully one of these teams will break through.
Why is that disappointing?
I think it's really nice for Patrick. It's just not as significant as what Tom did.
Probably should follow the wise words of Coach Mangini. You don't need to put out someone else's candle to make yours burn brighter, especially if that person's candle is lit with 4 MVPs. Here's Johnson on being left off the NFL 100.
There ain't no way. I don't know how you make Pro Bowl, All-Pro, and you're not a top 100 guy. I could have been 101, I guess, but Aaron Rodgers didn't even play in the season. He was voted. So, hey, everybody made mistakes. It ain't just the media that do it. The players, clearly, if they voted for this, they made some mistakes.
Agree, Rodgers didn't deserve a spot.
Yeah, listen, I understand Jalen Johnson's frustration. I think the worst snubs were his position group. He didn't make it. L'Jarius Sneed, who was an All-Pro, didn't make it. Sneed was not an All-Pro. Trent McDuffie was an All-Pro. He didn't make it. Meanwhile, Deron Bland was top 35, ahead of Sauce Gardner. So I thought that was poorly done. But just about Rodgers in the top 100, Rodgers should not be on the list and Baker Mayfield not on the list.
Wait.
You can't have Rodgers ahead of Baker in 2024.
Sure.
You just
Baker
can't.
Was like 102.
So
I would have Rodgers ahead.
Okay, well, can I show you 2 things real quick? What about since Baker came into the league? So this is a large sample. Which one is it? Do we not have them both in the playoffs? Okay.
I think Rodgers is 2 MVPs.
So here's Rodgers. Hold on. Well, here's I'll explain in a moment. Here's their last healthy years. So Baker flatly better last year than Rodgers was his last year in Green Bay. That's undeniable. The other thing that I was going to show you, but I'll just tell you instead, since Baker's been in the league, he's there it is. That's them in the playoffs over the last 6 years. That's the 6 years them in the playoffs. So you tell me how the younger, healthier player on the team with the better coaching staff and the more dynamic weapons shouldn't be ahead of Aaron Rodgers on this list.
Well, with that graphic, like I said, Rodgers has 2 MVPs since Baker's been in the league. Now, I will give you, based on his last 2 seasons, including last year, right, where he obviously didn't play, and the last year in Green Bay wasn't good. If you just go on that, then yes, he does not deserve to be in the top 100. But I still am not ready to write off Aaron Rodgers. And maybe he'll be a dud this year and we'll be done with him. But right now, with him being engaged, and I know he's still quirky and crazy and all that, but with him being engaged with those weapons, here's the thing, Nick. If Baker Mayfield was quarterback of the New York Jets. Do you think people, and you might think these people are crazy for thinking they got a shot at getting to the Super Bowl with Rodgers, do you think anybody, if Baker Mayfield was their quarterback, would be thinking the Jets had a chance to get to the Super Bowl?
No, but I don't think they have a chance to get the Super Bowl as
But
is.
there are a number of people that do give them a shot.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say is for Jalen Johnson to not worry about a poll. Like, you want your corners to not be frustrated by things like that. So that would be the first thing I'd say. And then the second thing I'd say is if you put those two options in front of 32 GMs, where for this next season you can have Baker or you could have Aaron, I would argue that the vast majority, if not 80% of them, would say that they would take Aaron over Baker for this coming season, regardless of what team they were on.
I'm willing to bet my life that Baker or that Aaron has better stats than Baker this year.
I'm saying if this were a draft and these were my two options, and you put those two options in front of all the GMs across the league, said this is who you can go into your season with, I'm arguing that 80% of.
If you were coaching the Jets again, and you had this defense, that team, that offensive line, and you know everything goes along with both guys, and you're like, hey, you can have either one of these players. Who would Eric Mangini pick?
Well, look, I had Brett Favre,
Yeah.
so I'm already in that family tree.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, I have a house because I have. It's been hard to sell. That being said, while he was healthy, he was really good, and I would probably take Aaron Rodgers.
Coach, you got to get rid of this house.
I know.
Well,
It wasn't the real estate market has
upgrades or
gone up
something?
and down. You should have been able
with
to
any luck,
unload this house.
with any luck, at the end of this week.
Aiden Daniels is going to play in the preseason opening game against the Jets, and he's fired up. Take a listen.
I just love playing football, so I'm happy about it. I mean, I always knew I was going to play. I don't know when I'm going to play. At least I have the opportunity to go out there and play, so I'm excited for it.
Coach, the prevailing wisdom is that Caleb's got the Rookie of the Year locked up. Do you think Jaden can steal it from him?
Yeah, definitely. We saw it last year, right? There was the consensus #1 pick, or pretty close to consensus #1 pick, and we have a totally different result than what I think anybody expected. And I'd say the same thing is true for Jaden. I really liked him on college tape, not just because of the plays that he made down the field, which there were an impressive group of those. I thought he had good poise in the pocket. He wasn't trying to get out quickly all the time. But when he got out, it was like he was shot out of a cannon.
That's my favorite.
Nobody timed him in the 40, but you don't need a 40 to watch on tape and go, God, that's really fast. It was really fast.
We did this last.
I'm telling you.
And Coach has all these. Sometimes, Coach, you have these like very intricate breakdowns where you're like, look, and when he's up against this coverage, and then your breakdown on Jaden is like, he is very fast. Guys, he is so fast.
It's kind of like the Caleb Wow plays, where that's the only way you can describe it. It's like, I'm not sure what his numbers are, but you don't really need to watch to know he's going to outrun pretty much everybody else who's on the field. But I really liked the fact that wasn't his first answer. He was trying to stay in the pocket. He was trying to make those plays work. And when things broke down, he took off. I know Nick hates him because he says he's too thin.
The hate is not fair.
Nick said
I don't like skinny, small quarterbacks. I just don't. Yeah. I just don't. It makes me nervous.
Okay,
That's all
I don't know
it
how
is.
small he is, but he may be a little bit on the thin side. But look, he'll probably grow into his body. A lot of us do.
Okay. Yeah. No, he's not on the. My point is, my entire reservation about him is the exact same reservation I had about Bryce Young. One is too skinny. The other is too small. Which is, there is simply to me a threshold that like a roller coaster, you must be this size for me to think I can spend a top 3 pick in the draft on you to play quarterback.
Well, it's easier to gain weight than it is to
if he would have, he could have. If
really?
he could have, he would have. Yes. He's
so everybody
old.
who graduates from college, that's their bar. Like wherever they are, they can't change their body at all.
I'm telling you that
why do we have weight rooms?
Because, Coach, if he was at LSU with probably a better weight room than the Commanders have, and he came out that size, that to me says he's not going to get much bigger. That's my only complaint about him, and it's just how I feel. I don't dislike the player. He's a great player. I just don't think he'll be able to stay.
I think he does have a good chance of winning Rookie of the Year.
There we go.
And look, and this kind of supports what you're saying because of his experience. I mean, 5 years, parts of 5 seasons in college football. He's 23. Look, he'll be 24 in December. But I think that'll allow him to adjust pretty quickly to the NFL. He does have weapons with McLaurin. Like, I actually think if they have similar seasons, because he's got the benefit of playing without expectations.
That's right.
Everybody's expecting not only Caleb individually to play well, but him to lift that team, whereas Daniels has the chance to really develop without people expecting so much immediately.
And CJ had a lot of that too.
Yep.
If not only that, but a lot of people question whether or not he was drafted way too high based off of all the pre-draft concerns that came out of nowhere.
October 27th, home against the Bears.
Oh,
That's going to be decided.
Yeah. Well, let's not.
Hopefully,
I mean, there's other guys.
he has a good